If you have a true strange or scary story you want to hear on the channel, go to astheravendreams.com and click the button to send it my way. And of course, thank you. Hi, Raven. I'm a new listener to your podcast, and I've listened to so many already, which encouraged me to write you a couple of stories of my own. I've had a few paranormal experiences in my lifetime. I do have quite a few different stories, so I'm not sure if you just want to tell one or multiple of them. Starting off with just a quick little background. I'm a 16-year-old female, and ever since I was little, I feel like I've been able to communicate/see many sorts of spirits. It's super weird, I know, but it's so weird to me, even. For starters, a little background to this story. I have a little sister. I was probably around 7 to 8 years old when this happened. Our house was kind of small, and so the setup was my room on one side, and my sisters were directly across from mine. My parents slept in the basement. Mind you, this happened many times, and so whenever I got scared, I went downstairs to sleep with my parents. So, it was at night. My mom had just tucked me and my sister in, and we both used to keep our doors open because it was scary. So, obviously, I could see straight into my sister's room. I had a loft bed at the time. It's like a bunk bed, but without a bottom bunk, just for stuff like storage, work, space, etc. For some reason, I always woke up in the dead middle of the night. I'm not quite sure why, but everyone thought that it was weird too. It didn't matter if I went to bed late or early. I always woke up dead in the middle of the night. It used to terrify me. Anyways, that specific night I had woken up for some reason, and I was wide awake, and so I opened my eyes and looked around. Here's where I absolutely freak out. I look over towards my sister's room and I just see this huge figure standing right outside her door, just staring at me. It was definitely taller than the door. It didn't really have a face, I guess. It was a completely black figure just standing there. So, obviously, I'm literally 8 years old, and I cover myself up with every blanket on my bed and did not look. I didn't get up, and I couldn't fall back asleep. My whole body was shaking so badly. This experience has haunted me for years and years. I'm not too sure if it's the same spirit, but ever since then, I constantly feel like I'm being watched. And sometimes, out of the corner of my eye, I can see a tall, dark figure scurry through. To this day, it still haunts me, and I'm always whipping my head around as if I've seen something. I don't know how to get it away or to leave. Has this happened to anyone else before? Or maybe I'm just crazy. Super short side note as well. There are so many more experiences with the paranormal I've had, but they are super short. Anyways, a short little story. So, I work at a hotel as a housekeeper. The weird thing is, the hotel is supposedly haunted. It creeps me out a little because I'm always listening to your podcasts while working. And ever since I started working there last year, it's been really weird. Like, I always see figures out of the corner of my eye time and time again. I've heard a really, really deep voice saying my name, making me literally run out of the room no matter what I'm doing. But I think I was most scared when I came home from work. I had brought this really weird cowbell that I found inside a hotel room, and I brought it home. Our house is currently set up like mine and my sister's room are upstairs and my parents' room is downstairs. I was messing with my mom saying like, oh, if I ring this bell, it summons spirits. Stupid, I know. But I ring it because it's literally just a bell. Nothing weird, right? I mean, beside the fact that I brought it home from a haunted hotel. Anyway, I rang it and then had gone upstairs to change my clothes. You know when you can hear someone walking behind you? If you have creaky floors like my house does. I walked upstairs into my room and I swear I heard my dog coming in behind me. So I turned around to pet him and greet him. Well, he was actually downstairs laying on the couch. I'm not even kidding, my heart dropped. It seriously scared the hell out of me because it literally sounded like my dog, which made me start thinking about 100 billion different things. It almost sounded like a little child walking behind me. It sounds so dumb, but what if the thing from the hotel followed me home? I have seriously debated quitting because it scares me so much seeing and hearing things, but also, I feel like I'm one of the very select people that can see and hear them because I've had connections with the afterlife many times. Like I said, I have so many more stories, but they are quite short. Please do let me know if you want to hear them. I love telling people my stories, but I just wish that they wouldn't happen to me. The story that I'm about to share with you is based on a true event. I considered labeling the story under the category of paranormal because what I saw was extraordinary and unexplainable. But you're about to hear is a spiritual experience that happened randomly, but also felt like it was perfect timing in my life. It all started when I was 19 years young. I worked as a waitress at a Greek restaurant named Olympia. I worked there so often, and I met a lot of new friends and got to know the regular customers of this restaurant pretty well. At this time of my life, I felt so friendly, outgoing, open-minded, and was smiling a lot. And I just wanted to spread peace and positivity to everyone I see. I never judged anyone based off their looks. I smiled at everyone and treated them all the same. Some people even called me a hippie and a free spirit. I had a customer named Michael that once brought me a book called The Power of Now, which is a book all about living in the present moment. Where I was working and grew up, I felt like my age group was into partying and dating, which was not really my interest. And there was not too many good role models and influencers that offered me another alternative way of life that involved being peaceful, healthy, and working on your inner and outer self. So, when Michael gifted me a self-improvement book, I thought, now that's a cool friend. Offering a teenager a book about living more in the present moment, instead of giving me drugs or asking me the question all teenagers dread, what do you want to go to school for, or be when you grow up? Anyways, Michael was one of the few people that stood out to me when I was working there. The location of this restaurant was near a Native American Seneca reservation. I remember this big man would come in to eat, and he stood out to me because he was the first person I saw in my life with a face tattoo. His face tattoo was a giant black bear's claw that covered most of his face. I was his waitress a few times, and I connected with him and his family while at the restaurant. A few months later, I decided to quit my job in New York at the Olympia restaurant in this small town, still being 19. I wanted a change in my life, such as packing my car with everything I owned and driving to California to create a new life, and go to a place that felt more like my vibe. Before leaving on this new big adventure, my friend Bridget invited me and a few other friends to go participate in a sweat lodge on the Seneca reservation. She texted me letting me know to dress a particular way. Being a female, we had to wear long skirts in the lodge, no jewelry, and a shirt that covered our shoulders. When we got there, we all got barefoot, and were handed a small red pouch that was tied shut. It was filled with tobacco, a symbol of protection. We were guided to walk around the fire clockwise and throw this small sack into the fire over our shoulder with a prayer. We lined up to the entrance of this sweat lodge. Men first and women second, oldest to youngest. There was sunlight still out when we went inside, and we were told that we would sit for 3 hours in there. One of my guy friends who came with us looked a bit nervous when they said 3 hours because, for some of our group, this was our first time at a sweat lodge ever. Sitting in there was around 32 people. We sat cross-legged. I was in the front row next to the fire. The door was open, so the light from outside was shining into the lodge. They were bringing hot lava rocks inside with a pitchfork and placing them in the center of the lodge. When I looked up, I saw the same man from the restaurant I used to work at, with the giant black bear claw tattered on his face. He recognized me and he named me Olympia, which was the name of the restaurant that he recognized me from. I thought the name was cool and I felt even more welcomed. Let's name the man with the tattooed face Bear Claw for this story. Bear Claw asked me to hold space for this ceremony and handed me a paper bag filled with cedar and said to continually sprinkle it on the lava rock until it was gone. As I was throwing the cedar, I could smell the sweet fragrance of the forest now in the lodge. He then told the group that he was going to pass around this salve, and we were to place it directly on the crown of our head. The salve was named Bear Balm. He said that this would connect us closer to the spirit world and divine. I am going to note here that I did not smoke, drink, or eat anything, and did not do any drugs that day. This was a totally sober experience. I would close my eyes, breathe, and listen to the drumming and the Native American chants and medicine songs. I now fully assume that Bear Claw was the chief and leader of this lodge. He would guide the English-speaking people to chant the native songs the best they could, even if they didn't know how to pronounce it, just to feel it and to participate. After some time being fully present and open to this sweat lodge and the culture, I opened my eyes to see a deep, dark purple orb floating high above our heads. And then, out of the corner of my eye and now in front of my face, I see a deep, dark emerald green orb flying all around our heads. And then I see two bright, light, playful orbs flying around. They're about the size of my fist. I had no idea what I was looking at because I had never seen something so bright and round flying around. It was not an animal or an insect. It was so real because I could see it when I was opening my eyes, but I couldn't see them when I was closing my eyes. The weirdest thing was that the white orb would come in front of my face directly, and get so close and giggle in a high-pitched voice like, hee 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 hee. Almost like it was being silly and knowing that I could see it, and that I was surprised. And it was having fun, flying circles around my head, and then going up and down and around. I was thinking that the rest of the people were seeing this, and I didn't move. I was sitting still in the meditation posture. It was so incredible to hear and see these orbs flying around me. I think there were 5 total. I remember there being more white light orbs, purple and green, and they all kept flying. They would whisper in my ear. They came to the side of my head and the back of my head, and then they would fly up again, and I was just sitting there watching these orbs, laughing, giggling, and flying around. It seemed like they were getting closer to me than anyone else in the lodge. After we got out of the sweat lodge, I felt like I was rebirthed, and it was now nighttime outside. I was fully drenched in sweat. My clothes were even completely wet that I was wearing, but I didn't feel cold, just refreshed and renewed. When we crawled out of the sweat lodge, I noticed the stars in the sky and the moon was full and completely red, with hints of orange. My friend said that tonight is a strawberry full moon, and that the natives know this full moon because this is the time of the season when you would normally harvest strawberries. After slightly processing what I had just seen, I asked my friend, who was also spiritual and open-minded, if she saw those orbs that were flying around in the sweat lodge as well. I explained to her the colors and what they looked like, and she said no, and she didn't see that. Then I asked a few other of my friends that I also came with if they saw the orbs, and they said they did not. After clearly hearing that no one had the same experience as me, I just felt like this was an experience just for me to have. Because I'm open to seeing, experiencing, learning. I'm open-minded to discovering more in life than what we are used to seeing with our naked eyes day to day. As this was a transitional time and what felt like a big step in my life, I felt protected, and that everything would work out, taking that leap of being a teenager and traveling the country by myself. This event happened in the perfect time of my life, because with this new experience, I now realized that you can see some magical and unexplainable energy without doing any sort of drugs or hallucinogenics. And that changed me as a human, and shifted my interest more into spirituality, herbalism, and sweat lodge ceremonies. I'm more inspired to be more open to hearing other people's experiences with the paranormal, glitches in the Matrix, past life stories, etc. I have no doubt now that with those bright small orbs flying around me and presenting themselves to me like they wanted to be noticed, it makes me question a lot, and know that there is more to life. We closed the Sweat Lodge gathering by going inside an apartment. Everyone brought a dish to pass, which we called a potluck. Everyone was very hungry and thirsty from sweating for all those hours, but before we dived into the food, there was a person who took one plate and added a little bit of each food that everyone had brought. They made a plate for the spirits to eat before us. The person with the paper plate of food brought it to the burning fire that earlier we had walked around by the Sweat Lodge, and then burned the food in the fire, saying that the spirit of the fire ate before us, and after that they had a long pipe filled with tobacco, and they passed it around to each person. But not everybody would smoke this, and also myself, who did not smoke and did not want to in this one, we were told to just tap it on our right shoulder, our left shoulder, and then up to our third eye, the center of our brows. Then pass it along. This was a symbol of peace and unity. Then, after eating, we all went home. A random part of the story that I remember, I met an elder who was not wearing a shirt and had jean shorts, and he wore turquoise rings on each of his fingers, and had 2 turtle shells tattooed on each of his kneecaps. They called him Turtle Man. I thought he was interesting. Anyway, even now at 28 years young, I know this story shapes who I am today. I shared the story to some people who I felt would understand or have an explanation, but to this day, I do not have an explanation, or logical reason for why that happened. When I studied yoga in Costa Rica, I tried asking one of the elders there if she knew what these orbs meant. She said that they could be chakras, which are energy wheels, different colors symbolizing different energy centers in our body that need to be balanced, or are extremely amplified. I still don't 100% know why these orbs came to me. I do know that it was a magical experience, and now I know that energy is real, seen and unseen, in my perspective. Hi, this is my first experience with the paranormal. First of many. I was 16, so it was about 12 years ago. I was clubbing with my older cousins in a country where they had kids' nightclubs where they sold alcohol and cigarettes to kids. My cousin had offered me a cigarette. Not that I ever wanted to smoke, but I gave in due to peer pressure. As I inhaled and began to cough my lungs out, in the darkness behind a tree, I saw a figure's head staring at me. I didn't think too much of it because it was dark and maybe he was just peeing on the tree. A week went by and this is when I started seeing things. I was hiding my newfound smoking habit from my parents, and only having a smoke if they were gone or if I was out for a walk or they were asleep. I went to the back of our house, where we were halfway through building a granny flat. I took a seat on the inside of the door so I was hidden and lit up. I was texting on my phone, and I noticed a light, very drastically being shaken around. So I dropped the smoke and squished it out while looking through the window towards the light. That's where I saw a black figure running with a lantern. I start to turn around to look out the door, and I see no one. No light, no figure, just darkness. I was wondering if it was our neighbor. Our houses were about 50 meters away from each other, but each had about 3,000 square meters of land apiece. We also used to visit each other by going around the back of the houses, as there was a little gate for easy access. I looked out the door and called out my neighbor's name. There was no answer. I started getting freaked out, and as I was about to start heading into the house, I heard a noise, like leaves rustling and a low growl. My brain just kicked into overdrive and said, "Did you forget the wolves make their way into the village at night?" So I ran, thinking it was a wolf and saving myself, forgetting all about the figure. I climbed into bed, and that's when I remembered the figure. I couldn't figure out who it would have been other than my neighbor. Fast forward about a week, and I'm on the balcony on the top floor of the house having another smoke. I look into the distance and I see a light again. I saw it. The figure was there again. I should mention now that my parents were at our neighbor's, and as I'm focusing on the figure, then suddenly I hear, "The hell are you doing?" And my mom screamed it from the darkness. This time they decided to come around the front of the house, having to pass the figure. After realizing it's my parents, I dropped the cigarette behind me while barefoot and stepped back directly onto it, burning the bottom of my foot. An argument ensued about my new habit, but at the end, I asked them who was the dark figure. They looked at me funny and said that they didn't see anyone. They didn't see the figure, and this started to freak me out. They're very religious, and decided to take me to a white mage to get rid of this apparent spirit. That didn't last, as not even 3 days after the visit to the white mage, the figure returned. Late at night, I was having another smoke outside. My parents didn't care that much at this point about the smoking. This is when I saw the figure again, this time closer to me and the house, standing maybe 50 meters from me, and the lantern was only illuminating the ground around the figure, but only pitch black remained of said figure. I asked, "Who are you?" And there was no response, just silence. I started to step back, keeping my eyes on the figure, and as soon as I'm close to the house, I run. My parents see me running and ask why I was running. I didn't tell them that I saw the figure, as during the argument, they mentioned that I'd be sent to an insane asylum if the white mage didn't work. That same night, I was asleep in bed when I had a dream. My grandparents were looking at me from the side like I was in a hospital bed, starting with my grandparents, grandma, dad, mom, and sister in that order, telling me to go outside. Kind of like one appearing on one side and disappearing before the next appears on the other, telling me to go outside. Then, in a raspy, horrible voice from above me, a dark figure appears and tells me the same. That's when I woke up. I didn't go outside, but I looked out the window. Everything was pitch black. The only thing that was different that I could see is anything that should have been organic, like grass and trees. It was all dark purple. That's when I see the white light below me. I look down and I see the figure. I close the blinds and run into bed, covering myself completely, and I didn't sleep that night. So I got up absolutely exhausted. Skip forward a month, with nothing but a few restless nights. It was finally time for bed. I fell asleep with no issues. But I awoke just after midnight to see the light on. I got up and saw the dark figure, standing at my feet. It moves its hand to its mouth area, and I hear a shh sound. I was too scared to move, let alone make a noise. The figure pointed to my smokes, and as I looked over at them, he vanished, like smoke. I didn't sleep for like a week after that, but it was also the last time I saw the figure, and I took to calling him the Lantern Looker. I wonder if I'll ever see him again. This was my first real experience with the paranormal, but there are many more, so if people want to hear more, I'm happy to submit them. Hi, Raven. I'm a follower of Christ, but at one point in my life, I was a staunch atheist, or at the very least, agnostic. I'm a scientist in a neuroscience PhD program, so I've often been skeptical of spiritual things, but I wanted to share the story that made me sincerely change my perspective and had me look hard at my life. My entire life, I've lived with bouts of sleep paralysis. A side story that comes to mind is when I had dreamt of a young lady who tried drugs at a party in a cabin in the woods and overdosed. No one helped her, and the rest of the partiers left when they realized she'd OD'd. I woke from that dream in a sleep paralysis state, and the girl from my dream with dark long hair and pale skin was at my bedside. She was wrapped in pieces of cloth to conceal her decay, but she was caressing my arm and asking me to help her in soft whispers. Talk about scary. So, needless to say, I have extremely vivid dreams that are often filled with lifelike realities. But this story that I want to tell you was different from the other sleep paralysis or nightmares I've had. It forever changed me, and it often takes a lot of courage for me to talk about it. I wanted to try to face it today by writing it to you as a sort of exposure therapy. My husband and I fell asleep one night over the summer. It was a night like any other. We showered, talked, and then hit the lights to sleep. When I started to dream, however, an awful vision came to me. I was in a clinical-looking room. All white walls, white tiled floors, and a single dim LED light bulb above me. I was sitting on a cold metal chair, and in front of me was a large metal slab that appeared to be a table. I was shaking and nervous. Across the table sat a figure. I could barely make out its features since the backlight of the bulb was essentially blocking out its face, but I could feel it staring at me intently. I didn't have to say a word the entire time. This figure began to talk to me. I'm going to do my best to summarize what this figure said to me, but I want people to know that it was far more intense and scarier than what I could find the words to describe in this post. They think I am like the symbols they poke fun with, the figure said in a monotone robotic voice. That I am like the goat's head and silly devil with horns. The figure moved closer to me now, leaning across the table, and I could now see its face, or rather lack of a face. The figure looked like a plastic mannequin, lifeless, without any eyes, just soulless and gaping. Its skin was perfect, but clearly had no pores or any identifiable moles or wrinkles. Its lack of eyes was what unsettled me, just blackened tunnels that pierced into my soul. And its voice was hollow, like it was playing a voice recording that had been twisted and mixed in a raucous chorus. They think I'm the personification of evil, it said now, unfazed and showing no emotions. That I have vengeance and drive to do harm, but the truth is not that I am bad, said the figure, not moving a single muscle. It is that I lack a soul. I sat there now, not saying anything, and I could feel myself having a panic attack. My ears were thumping, and my heart felt that dreadful icy sensation. That feeling when you know something horrible has happened. It was so quiet in this room, so suffocating. I was aware that I was in a dream, but I couldn't do anything to end it. I was forced to be in this vision with this figure. I harvest you, said the figure. "And the only thing that gives me life is taking your emotions and splitting you from your soul. It doesn't matter if they're good emotions like joy or bad emotions like rage. I want all of them. I harvest them all when you're not protected. Whether it is from when you sin in your anger or sin in your pleasure, I take you no matter what." At this point, I was crying. The tears were streaming down my face, but the figure's face kept inching closer to my own, and I couldn't look away. "I am the void," is what it parted with, and that phrase forever stuck with me. "I am the void," it repeated. And then its bottom jaw fell, elongated and wide, and inside its warped mouth I saw razor-sharp teeth and a literal void, which appeared to look like space itself. This figure began to tug me towards its mouth, but I screamed and pushed it away, though I knew nothing was saving me. It began gnashing at my nose like some vicious dog, and I cried out to God. It was foreign to call out to God, as I've said, I was an atheist at this point in my life. But when I called to him, the dream ended abruptly. In my half-sleep, half-wake state, I sprung out of our bed and literally ran to the other side of the room. Amid the craziness, I was crying, screaming, and shouting for the figure to go away. I was on my hands and knees in tears, still in a hazy dream state. I was crying so hard that I actually vomited, which is gross, I know. This obviously woke up my husband, who was now beside me trying to console me and figure out what the heck I was doing. I must have cried for an entire hour. I was rocking myself like a literal baby, in so much fear and pain. I was never the same after that experience, and it totally changed me as a person. Luckily, there is a happy ending. A few months later, after healing my trauma and opinions from past negative church experiences, I gave my life to Christ, who I believe had shown me that vision for a reason. I'm now living a wonderful life, and have never had a nightmare since that day, many years ago now. I know it sounds crazy, but I felt compelled to share this with you and your audience, since I know you all are chill, accepting people on this channel. Thank you for giving us a platform to share such experiences that we normally wouldn't be able to. I've listened to the podcast for a while now and decided to share my story. Once I was sleeping in my bed, but then I woke up. The sun was rising a little, but it was still dark. I was still very tired. I looked behind me at the headboard when I saw a long hand coming out from behind it. It was this long hand, and it was all black. It was like a shadow, except darker. Since I was tired, I wasn't thinking about it much, so I whacked at it, and then it quickly went under the bed. And then I fell back asleep. When I woke up a little later, the sun had risen more. It was almost day, and my mom was also awake in the bed beside me lying down. "Is there something on my head?" my mom asked. I looked at her head, and I saw the black hand touching it. I was more awake and energetic now. I decided to whack at it again, and then it quickly went back under the bed. My mom asked me why I hit her, and I told her about the long black hand, and all she said was, "Okay." I don't know what it was, but I think I saw a shadow person. So that, my friends, was a collection of some paranormal stories, the 75th according to my math. Is that math correct? Who knows? I don't. I think it is. It's kind of weird to think that in over 5 years I've only done 75 paranormal story videos, but who's to say? I know I've done, like, haunted house stories that don't count as paranormal, but they are paranormal, but they're not considered in that count, so I don't know. Anyways, a collection of paranormal stories. Some interesting ones today, for sure. Seems like these shadow entities are definitely having their way with people there. I said that very strangely. The shadow entities are doing their thing, being creepy. How's that? Is that better? It sounds better to me. Interesting. A Native American. My brain escapes me. I'm sorry. Events. What is that called? What is the word I'm looking for? I don't know. Ritual, kind of. I don't know. The sweat room one was interesting. I've never read a story like that, so it was cool to get that one. And then just some really interesting stories today. So, like I said, my brain is escaping me. It's been a very long day today. It's actually Monday when I'm recording this. Yeah. I was supposed to have a glitch video out today. Didn't. It's going up tomorrow on Tuesday, which whenever this video comes out will be yesterday. Figure that one out. Yeah. It was expensive. It was just a long, stressful day, and I had to take my car in, which is a hybrid, and the battery died, the 12-volt battery. Thankfully, it was the 12-volt, not the hybrid battery, which is still $500 after everything was said and done, which there was more done than just that, but it was still a $500 repair, which was a pain, but it's okay. It'll be okay. Everything got taken care of. I have a new battery. I'm happy. Let's go. Anyways, hopefully you all enjoyed these paranormal stories. I don't know what my car had to do with that. Don't know how I got on that topic. But anyway, if you did enjoy the stories, please do hit that thumbs up button, the like button. If you're new to the channel and liked what you heard, consider hitting the subscribe button. That'd be awesome of you. If you're feeling bold and would like to do so, leave a comment below the video. Say hi to me. Tell me how you're doing, how your day was, stuff like that. Just whatever you want to say. Yeah. You can also listen elsewhere, such as Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible, etc., etc. You can join Patreon or memberships, get early access to content like this, because that's awesome, if you want to. Never expected, always appreciated. And lastly, just do a super thanks, which is a tip to the channel. Again, not expected, always appreciated. All that said, my friends, hopefully you're having a beautiful week so far. Hopefully I see you again here very soon. But until then, remember that you are loved, you are valid, you are important, you are the best you that you can be. Do not forget it, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Until next time, my friends, much love, and sleep well.